friends. My name is Ichigania, and welcome to the Our Project Death on a Paper podcast. I would like to welcome you to the very first episode that we will be having on the series of social media commentary. What I want this series to be like, it's not always like directly related to just social media content. It's more so also like things that happen on a wider scale, like for instance like the entertainment industry in general, like even outside of the confines of social media. But nevertheless, these topics are like very frequently and intensely discussed on social media platforms, and that is why I want to talk about them here, because it's I do want to classify them as social media commentary in that sense, because a lot of the times the thoughts that I have surrounding like these topics, it's more so related to the kind of content that I see being made of these topics, if that makes sense. It's I think I just want to offer like my own 2 cents on the way that people choose to portray these sometimes extremely nuanced, complicated, and also just crucial topics. I feel like, I mean, we all know this. Like, I would like to think so. We all know this by now, that social media like literally always forgets that nuances exist, and I mean that's a problem, and it's a problem that is going to be present in almost everything that I will be talking about in this series, I would imagine, because especially like certain topics are just something that like we should be able to detect, like those gray areas. And I mean, to go on a bit of a tangent here, growing up, not that I'm like, like grown like in that way, but I'm 25 now, and my experience of adulthood has been, well, pretty just different, I could say, compared to the like regular everyday 25-year-olds. But something that I do think it's kind of like kind of a universal experience, is that when you grow up and when you enter your adulthood era, you tend to realize that things just aren't that black and white in life, and this is especially particularly very interesting to realize, and sometimes very difficult to accept as someone with BPD, because borderline personality disorder is very much characterized by black and white thinking, and just like a lack of awareness around like nuances, like those gray areas, especially when it comes to relationships and your own perceived self-image and identity. So it's been very eye-opening, to say the very least, to truly just like see it for myself and experience it, that like, oh yeah, that's right, life isn't that fucking simple after all. Like, no matter how I personally feel about it, like my feelings being a certain type of way, my feelings being like very often very cut and dry, like it's either this or that and nothing in between. That in itself, it's a very difficult thing to just like accept and move on from. But I kind of don't have any choice here. I mean, I can, and I do still do this. I can just completely shut things off and allow myself to get drowned into that sea of black and white thinking, and let it consume me, and then eventually spiral because of that. That does still happen, and it's a very, very difficult pattern to break, because as for people with BPD, we typically have been experiencing these symptoms for like a very long time. It's been a struggle. It's been like this for a lot of us, just like years and years. Like, I mean, I know people that have been diagnosed with BPD when they were like in their late teenage years. So like for them, it's just like even over a decade. It's like, you know, so that's why breaking those patterns is really not that easy, and it's a very difficult thing to accept, but you kind of have to, because the thing is that if you continue to perceive the world around you and yourself and things that matter to you in that black and white kind of way, you'll soon realize that you're facing even more difficulties and problems than you would if you didn't do that. A lot of the times for borderlines, you can see that in our relationships, like tumultuous and unstable relationships. Then also very unstable sense of self, lack of identity, and things like that. For example, if you like lose your job, or if you have to suspend your studies, this is what happened to me. That in itself can just make you feel like you have no identity left, because a certain part of you, a part of you that's like being very important to you, is suddenly gone. So now you're just like, well, who the fuck am I then if I don't have this? And that's that black and white thinking. It's interesting because I always thought that I'm not that type of a person, you know? I'm not that black and white thinking kind of a person. And maybe I'm not really. Yeah. I feel like I've always been drawn to nuances and just like ponder on things and see things in many different ways and just explore different perspectives and whatnot. So then when everything just kind of spiraled out of control for me, it was a very jarring experience to be like one day just like, why am I behaving in this way? Why do I feel like this? Why am I having these kinds of thoughts? This is not who I am. And that, in turn, was also a very fabulous trigger to only just like escalate further that black and white thinking, and eventually something that we call splitting in the BPD community. So yeah, that was wonderful. Great time. Anyways, that was a long intro. Sorry about that. But that was kind of a fitting intro for this specific topic that I want to talk about, because this is an issue with a lot of nuances, and I personally really enjoy these types of conversations, and I indulge in them very often with my girlfriend or with my dad and my mom. Yeah, like I'm very, very close with my parents, so we have a lot of these kinds of conversations, just like sharing our thoughts and opinions and feelings on things that are like bigger than us, but still like somehow interest us or affect us in some kind of way. It's very, very fascinating. So I'm that type of a conversationalist, I guess. So maybe that's also like why I wanted to start this podcast, because I feel like this is something that's more natural and more fitting for me, rather than rather than sitting in front of a fucking camera and being all awkward and shit and being like, oh fucking hell, now I have to talk, and I have to like look like a presentable human being, and oh my god, people are staring at me, and I am so fucking ugly right now, oh my god. So like I don't enjoy that. But this feels pretty natural to me. Clearly because I've been yapping here for like 12 minutes almost by now, and I still haven't got into the topic. Excuse me. Yeah, so now I feel like this would be the proper time to actually like get into it, actually start talking about the thing that I was meaning to talk about, which yeah, today I wanted to talk about Blake Lively with you guys. Yeah, I know. A lot of people are talking about her, and a lot of people are talking about the entire the shit show that happening around her. And yeah, I'm going to be one of those people. Sue me. Actually, please don't. Just notice that might have not been the most fitting time for this fucking joke. Sorry. Can you tell that I am not an American? Sorry, my girlfriend. I apologize. So, I wanted to talk about Blake Lively and the situation happening around the movie. It ends with us. But as a disclaimer, I want to say this before I even like start. I'm not going to be going over the situation itself here, like in a detailed manner, because if you want that, I'll link and like put suggestions for other commentary YouTubers and podcasters and creators who have talked about this stuff, this entire debacle, in a very thorough manner. So you can refer to those people and their content instead of mine if you're not familiar with the situation. And it's important context for you to like understand like truly and fully what we're talking about here. But as a very very brief like introduction, I guess. Yeah, so basically what happened is that Blake Lively found herself in this media scandal last year, like after the movie It Ends With Us premiered in August 2024. Since then, like during the press tour, like the marketing campaign for the movie, which is, if you guys are not aware, it's based on a novel written by Colleen Hoover, and like essentially the story is about domestic violence. So there's that. But the way that Blake went about like marketing this film and just like the press tour, interviews and everything, like she went about it in a way that very much like diminished the role and the importance that domestic violence has in the story, and that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, me being one of them. And so yeah, she found herself in this media scandal that she had created for herself. And then after that, in December, was it in December? Or yeah, it was. When Blake Lively then suddenly she fucking sued the director of the movie, Justin Baldoni, who was her co-star. So she like sued his ass because like she was alleging that there was like sexual harassment and just like various kinds of like nefarious actions, just like on like non-consensual stuff, and like all kinds of harassment, just and a hostile work environment and all that kind of stuff. And she tried to back all of that up with like screenshots of like presumed text messages, but then those ended up being like almost like they ended up being at least somewhat fabricated, and or at least very very much so like completely separated from their original context. So yeah, then Justin sued her and also the New York Times, who made that hit piece on him. Like, he sued them all because like he had actual receipts that none of that stuff was like actually going on. So yeah, in summary, Blake made a lot of mistakes in her own like marketing campaign when it came to the movie, and she got a lot of flack for it. And then she accused Justin of sexual harassment, and also, yeah, she accused him of conducting this smear campaign against her, that it was Justin and his production studios doing, that the media, that the press came up with all of those very negative and like slanderish articles on Blake, even though like they were actually just like referring to Blake's own actions and words and stuff, but whatever. So yeah, that's the case. She got herself into a shitty situation, then accused someone else for putting her in that shitty situation, proceeded to play the victim card and exploit victimhood, the status of female victims of sexual violence in this very much patriarchal society, and tried to get herself off of this tricky situation and the consequences of her own actions. Right. So that's why I'm here. Because as you know already, everything that I do here, everything that I do and everything that I talk about is somehow related to bullying or like mental health stuff. But now we're talking about bullying, because one thing that people have been talking about when it comes to Blake Lively and her interviews and everything is that she is giving off mean girl energy, and I can attest to this. I do agree with that notion, but mean girl energy, the mean girl is typically, it's like this like archetype of a popular girl in school who usually is somewhat of a bully. Yeah. And me, as someone who has a lot of personal experience with this type of abuse, who has met a lot of these people, who knows how they act, like I know how they operate, I know how they think and feel about things, because I've been perceiving them and observing them my whole life. And I have also done like my own fair share of academic reading on bullying as a form of abuse and the different roles that it includes, like other roles too than just the perpetrators and the victims, like just everyone that's involved. So yeah, I do have like some level of expertise in this topic, which is why I feel confident enough to talk about this. So my point here was to just discuss the entire situation with Blake Lively and her very controversial and just baffling and bizarre behavior and actions from the context of bullying. And I have divided this discussion into two major sections. First one being I wanted to start with the abuse tactics that are present in Blake's behavior and actions, both in the media, in the public eye, during the press tour, for example, and then her behavior and mannerisms and actions that are visible on the actual evidence material that Justin has provided in his own personal lawsuits against her, and everything else that's knowledgeable, that's something that people know of the filming process and all of that kind of stuff. So I want to talk about the abuse tactics in the context of bullying, the tactics that I am able to see in her behavior. And now, as a disclaimer, all of this is obviously for legal purposes. This is alleged, and this is just my personal opinion on these matters as someone who has faced extreme and severe bullying in their childhood, to the point of developing several health complications, mental disorders due to that abuse. So it's basically my opinions and arguments are based on my own personal experiences, and also my own academic reading that I have done on bullying on my own time. So yeah, I am only observing Blake's behavior from this specific context. My reason for this is that I want to provide actual proper elements of bullying into this discussion, because something that has been frustrated, and that has it has frustrated me a lot when I have been following this entire debacle, is that people throw around the mean girl trope and the mean girl as a label that they attach to Blake, but then they don't delve that much deeper into it, which I get it. Not everyone is as obsessed with these things as I am, but I have my own reasons for it. But nevertheless, it's something that I wish that more commentary content creators and reporters actually talked about, because the lack of actual proper discourse surrounding the different abuse tactics that are exhibited in Blake's behavior, allegedly, that harms the general argument of her being the problem in this situation. In my personal opinion, it does disservice to that argument, because I would like to think that we would actually have to have proper just reasonings for that argument, if that makes sense. Something that we can refer back to. And because of the vagueness of the term mean girl, people have very specific ideas, mostly just influenced by media and maybe their own personal biases, that how they perceive the mean girl to be. Instead of focusing on those extremely subjective and vague labels that people throw around all willy-nilly, I want to provide actual concrete analysis and information from the context of bullying, because it's an important topic to me personally, but also I feel like this entire fucking shit show is just a perfect example of how adults do this to each other in their own working environments. And I feel like workplace bullying is something that we don't talk about all that much, because we tend to associate that type of abuse with school and kids and teenagers. But it's a very, very big issue, and it needs to be talked about more. It needs more representation. So that's why I'm here to do this. That's why I'm here to talk about the abuse tactics that I have been able to detect from Blake's behavior and just presentation. Then moving on to the second part, I'm going to be talking about when this stuff goes unnoticed from the perpetrator's point of view. When bullying is something that goes unnoticed and unaddressed, when the perpetrator is allowed and able to continue abuse their victims, when they are not punished, when they are not removed from the situation, when they are just left alone and they can do whatever the fuck they want, and how that affects the perpetrator themselves. Because that's a point of view, that's a perspective that we don't really see. I'm more so using Blake here as kind of like a case study. Again, I'm not here to say like any definitive answers to these questions. This is just like my own like pondering on these matters. So I am not saying that all of this like applies to her personally, because again, obviously I don't know her personally. I don't know the situation well enough to say anything like that. However, I'm just here to provide another perspective, another point of view, because I do know that these types of people exist. I have met them, and I have been in touch with them a lot of like many times. I know how they act, and it's just these are characteristics that I've been able to detect from their behavior when I know that they have abused their peers in school, and like none of that got addressed in any kind of way. They didn't receive any kind of punishment for their behavior, for their actions of abuse, and how that eventually like ended up affecting like their life in their adulthood. So I have that kind of a basis for these arguments as well. That's why I wanted to talk about her, and I feel like now is like actually the perfect time to actually just get the fuck into it. So yeah, let's do that. Okay, so yeah, the abuse tactics that I've been able to detect from Blake's behavior and the way that she answers to questions in media interviews, and this entire fucking situation, like all down to the lawsuits and everything. I've been able to name three separate abuse tactics, and I wanted to go over them with you guys right now. Yeah, so the first one of these abuse tactics that I've been able to detect here is exploitation of victimhood. And this specific abuse tactic is very common in all variants of bullying, not only in school, though you do tend to see a lot of it in school. I'm referring like by this terminology, I'm referring to the situation where like the perpetrator tries to portray themselves as the victim, and they try to blame the abusive situation on the victim, and then they try to manipulate the situation in a way that makes them look like they have been hurt, and that the victim has done something to them. That is what I call exploitation of victimhood. And you can very clearly see that in Blake's behavior when you look at the way that she responded to the criticism, to the very, very much like well deserved and relevant criticism that she got for the press tour, for the way that she decided to go about marketing this movie that was about domestic violence and like female victimhood in toxic and abusive relationships with abusive men. You can very clearly see that when she decided to like go ahead and sue Justin Baldoni for being the problem, basically, for being the one who orchestrated this so-called smear campaign, and who was the one that made the media outlets portray her in that kind of way, and that his like production studio was also in it, and that they were the ones responsible for the huge amount of backlash that she was receiving for her own choice of words, for her own like demeanor and for her own attitudes and all that kind of stuff. She blamed all of that on Justin and his production studio. And this is her clearly exploiting the status of victim, exploiting victimhood, because she's trying to make herself as the victim in that situation, despite not really being one, despite actually being the one that did something undeniably questionable and something that did warrant that that criticism that she got for the press tour and how she handled that. Exploitation of victimhood also it entails claiming the victim status, and this very often it relies on this, like on the perpetrator's status, higher status in social hierarchies, and this is a key factor of bullying as a form of abuse. I will talk about all of this in much more detail in a future episode on the series Bullying 101, where I will be, delving deep into like what bullying even actually is, the definition, and what traits and what characteristics an abusive situation needs to have in order to be classified as bullying. But for these purposes, in this episode, I'm going to be talking about the social hierarchies and the power imbalance. Those are like key factors in bullying. They have to exist in that situation, in that dynamic, in order for the situation to be considered bullying. And when it comes to Blake, this most certainly is the case. Because of the power that she holds over Justin. This is my personal anecdote, but anyways, Justin Baldoni as a name was completely unfamiliar to me up until this point. I know that he has done like a few remarkable roles in like TV shows, maybe more so, well, maybe movies too. Honestly, I haven't really been following like Hollywood like films like all that much, but like I do like recognize names and faces when it comes to actors and actresses and directors and all that kind of stuff, but his name and face was pretty much unfamiliar to me. Blake Lively, on the other hand, I did know who she was, of course, because she's been a staple in the Hollywood scene for decades, so I did know her. And that's the kind of power that she holds within that social hierarchy. She's considered to be an A-list celebrity in the Hollywood scene, and a very much well-respected actress up until this point, at the very least. So by that definition, she has that higher status in the social hierarchy of Hollywood celebrities than Justin does. And in order to exploit victimhood in the way that she, in my own perception, did, she relies on this higher status in the social hierarchy, basically going to the routes of they will believe me even if there is no proof because I hold the power. And this is something that bullies, abusers, kids who abuse other kids, this is something that they tend to do a lot. The popular kids in school, when they did what they did, and they felt no remorse for it, and they didn't really even like try to hide the fact that they were just lying out of their asses and just like manipulating the situation to their own benefit. They didn't even try to make that like not obvious. And they had that courage. They had that like very, very strong like faith in themselves, because they knew that they were the ones that hold the power over the victim's head, because they knew that they had that social currency. They had that power at play in the social hierarchy of the class. That no matter what they did, they would not lose that status in that social hierarchy. So therefore, it didn't really even matter if people found out that they were the one who was to be blamed for the abuse, because the abuse in itself would not matter because it was them who was doing it. And I can see this same situation like happening with Blake and Justin, because the fact of the matter is that she does hold like more power over Justin, because of the social hierarchy, because of the power imbalance of like her being a very well-known and respected A-list celebrity and an actress that has been in the scene for decades, like compared to Justin, who's not that well known of a name. That doesn't mean that he has not like achieved anything in the entertainment industry and in Hollywood. It only means that that she's much more well known, and she does hold that power over him. That's a fact. Then another example of Blake exploiting victimhood is that I'm able to see this misinformed assumption here. This misinformed assumption being the victim status makes you like morally pure. There's this like misconstrued idea of the perfect victim, that that a victim is a person who has done nothing wrong, that a victim is someone who cannot be blamed for anything, and their status as a victim, that their status as a victim excuses them of any of the wrongdoings that they may have done. This is especially true in bullying. You know, you think back to the times that maybe you were abused as a kid by other kids in your class, or at least someone who you know was. When you think of that situation, how often can you like remember that you did something that was not right, that was not something, you did something that you shouldn't have maybe done, and that then that got turned against you at the end? For instance, we can see this in like when the victim tries to defend themselves and they try to fight back. This gets like used against them, and then they become the problem, because again, a victim of a situation that involves bullying has to be perfect. They have to be morally pure. They have to be completely innocent and void of any wrongdoings, any moral ambiguity. Fuck. So yeah, I can very clearly see this type of mentality here. Not necessarily like in a practical way, but in this idea that like Blake was so adamant and so just like fully trusting in herself and in that lawsuit that she was going to get what she wanted, because she portrayed herself as the victim, and therefore like she couldn't have done anything wrong. That's the kind of like mental framework that I can detect from there. Again, like purely just based on my own perception and knowledge on things. But yeah, I know that a lot of perpetrators, I know that a lot of abusers like think like this, especially in the context of bullying. So therefore, it's in here. Another factor of exploitation of victimhood is this the reliability of your status and your narration as the victim is completely based on bullying being an experience reliant abuse. What I mean by this is there's this very, very common and usual like sentence structure that kids get taught at school, that this is the way that things go, and this is the way that they should be referring to bullying if they are ever involved in it, which is, if you feel like you are being bullied. And this is solely because bullying as a type of abuse is extremely subjective, and its definition is, well, I mean, there are objective factors to to that definition, and you will get more familiar with them later on. But at the end of the day, it is the victim's own personal experience, like if they have been bullied or not, and they get the final say in that, because what somebody else might not deem as bullying, somebody else will. And this is just because we're social creatures, and bullying as a form of abuse is social abuse, and it's very much like reliant on the kind of way that we personally operate in social situations. Like for instance, the social status that you have in that group setting that you are a member of at that particular moment. If you are someone who doesn't feel like you are at the bottom of that social hierarchy, then you might not deem like something that could be considered bullying as like somebody bullying you, because that's just how you feel about it. And this especially this like very subjective like experience based on like reliability of this narrative that Blake has structured is something that I can see being just taken advantage of, because then you can claim to feel like a victim because it is the victim like themselves who at the end of the day gets to decide if they are a victim of bullying in that situation. And if you claim your status as a victim, everyone else is basically like obligated to believe you, because of the very nature of bullying as a social abuse. Hi, this is editing Ichkunia. What I would like to add on to this though is that of course there are these objective factors that you must need in order for a situation to be classified as bullying, and if the victim is not aware of these factors, or if they're just like in other kinds of ways just misinformed on the type of abuse that bullying even really is. This is precisely why I think that it's extremely important for us to delve into the actual definition of the term bullying as a descriptor of abuse, and why I find it so fundamentally important to spread awareness of like the real nature of bullying as a form of abuse. This obviously extends itself to situations of like schools and whatnot. Because the fact of the matter is that a victim cannot truly understand if they are being bullied by like the actual definition of the term, and they cannot really even comprehend the situation as an abusive situation if they are not aware of the very real, like realistic classifications and characteristics that a situation of bullying needs to have. This does not mean that a victim is not valid in their feelings, because it is always extremely important for us to validate the real feelings of victims of bullying, even when like the situation may not actually be of that nature. What I mean by this is that people are allowed to feel upset about things. Like that's a part of the human condition, that we have feelings, we have emotions, and we are allowed to feel like many types of ways about a situation. We can be upset at the way that another person is treating us in a social situation, and it does not need to actually be of like a situation involving bullying as a form of abuse for your feelings to be valid there. If I truly hope that you understand what I mean by this. This is not to invalidate the feelings of a quote-unquote victim of bullying in a situation, even when like there's not actual like real bullying taking place. It's just like the fact of the matter is that there is a clear definition of bullying. There are like very clear criteria that you have to meet in order for a social situation to be classified as bullying, as like an abusive situation. And this is why it is so incredibly important for us to bring forward the real definition of bullying as a descriptor of abuse, what it actually entails, and how to properly identify situations as abusive in the context of bullying. I hope that this clears things up a bit. Yeah, back to the original me. Yeah, as a final note to exploitation of victimhood as an abuse tactic is when you get older, when you grow up, you gain more awareness, and with more awareness, you can engage in more deliberate abusive acts. As an adult, you understand social situations much more than when you were a kid, and that cognitive ability to analyze situations and to operate in social settings gives you that like leverage that you need to have in order to be extremely like deliberate in your manipulation tactics and in your abusive acts when it comes to bullying. Because a lot of the times when it comes to kids, they're not that aware of their surroundings and the situations that they're in, so they might not be able to make as calculated choices as like an adult can. Now, my personal experience is that kids can be absolutely just like insanely manipulative. A lot of my abusers were like that. They were very emotionally intelligent at the ripe age of 11 years old. It's crazy. So that's not a totally objective fact. But what is true generally is that adults do tend to just understand human beings and understand living as a human being and social situations more, because they've been here longer than kids. They've experienced more. So, yeah. All right, moving on to the second abuse tactic that I was able to detect in Blake's behavior based on my personal experiences and perceptions. This one is a shorter one, so we can get over that and then move on to the next one. This is exclusion, and you can see that very clearly with Blake deliberately excluding Justin from all of the press conferences, from the press interviews that she was involved in. She is not seen with Justin in any of these press interviews, in these meetings with reporters. Like the press tour, she was very often either accompanied by like Colleen Hoover or with her other co-stars, like with the actor who played the second love interest, the love interest that was like he was like a side character, and some other actresses too. But she was never seen together. Son? Cool English grammar. Fuck. But she was never seen together with Justin because she was excluding him from the in-group. You're not in the in-group type of a situation. These can also be called cliques, especially when it comes to like school settings. But also like Hollywood is like a very cliquey type of community. Like honestly, like they have these in groups in there. That's like a fact. So it fits in if the shoe fits. So yeah, and also the fact that she was able to basically manipulate others in that group to take part in this exclusion of Justin. And you can see this by I mean, again, from a personal perspective, in it that basically everyone was following like Blake, along with Blake, and like they had all unfollowed Justin, and like she had basically like gotten almost everyone else like on her side, and Justin was pretty much alone or by himself or with like his own production studio and like his co-workers from there. But like when it came to the cast of the movie, like he was basically like always going solo. Also, exclusion as an abuse tactic, it is by nature emotionally manipulative, and it panders to, for example, abandonment issues. People who have faced like social exclusion and who have been like involved in a social group, in a social setting before, and then suddenly they get excluded, they get shunned, they might end up like later on in life developing trust issues or abandonment issues, something that for example people with BPD like have like very often like struggle with it. Like me personally, my fear of abandonment is like insane. So and a lot of it comes like down to this kind of abusive behavior. Told you that was a shorter one. Okay, yeah, because now we can move on to the third abuse tactic that I've been able to like write down here, which is abuse of power. We shortly like talked about like the social hierarchy, but this is kind of like an extension of that. So so to start this off, like we could say that this is about like who has more social currency in this social situation. Social currency meaning like the status, the spot that you have in that social hierarchy, like talking about like high celebrity status, like celebrities being apparently, I didn't know this, but maybe that's because like I'm Finnish and I don't live within this culture, like American entertainment industry, or just like as an American, I just see this kind of stuff daily. But I didn't know that there were like these like separate different fucking like tiers for celebrities. I didn't know that this was a thing. I'm gonna sound like a total fucking idiot now, but like, are we like placing like celebrities in like some kind of like a running track or something? Yeah, here's the A-list celebrities, and they get the inner rim, the inner circle. Like, what the fuck? I don't know. I don't know. To me, that's weird. But that's apparently a thing. And like I said previously, Blake most definitely is an A-list celebrity, so she has more of that, more social currency, and is able to utilize abuse of power in that way. Then, this is something that I felt like is going to be a bit controversial, but I wanna preface this off by saying first that again, this is very much so heavily tied into the high status as a celebrity that Blake Lively has over Justin. Don't take this like out of its context, please. I'm begging you. This is very much like about Blake's status, like high status as a celebrity, as an actress, and this wouldn't be a thing otherwise. But because this is the social hierarchy, that these people are setting, this applies. So, womanhood in the context of sexual harassment. Statistically speaking, women are the gender who gets the most of sexual harassment and abuse, at the hands of men, typically, and with the way that things have progressed in our society somewhat, we have generally been able to cultivate this mentality that if a woman says something that she feels like she's being sexually harassed or abused, by a man, we believe her because that's the right thing to do, and because statistically speaking, like, she is most likely like saying the truth. So it's very easy to believe a woman when they say this, and that's something that we should always adhere to. And no matter what kind of like high social status like that women has, it doesn't matter. We should always like first and foremost like believe victims when they perceive and they portray themselves as victims. However, this doesn't mean that that victim status can be taken away from those women when it becomes apparent that, oh shit, they actually weren't the victim here, that they were using their status and their their place in the social hierarchy further to their own advantage, and even like their status as a woman in this situation. And it's very apparent to me that Blake has been able to utilize this, because like if you guys were following this situation when it was like unfolding, I'm talking about like the moment when the lawsuits just started dropping off. Like the first that official, it wasn't even like the first lawsuit, it was a complaint the Blake had made with her legal team, I guess, about the sexual harassment. Yeah, so during that time when Blake made that first official complaint, the tides shifted immediately. I was also there. My personal perspective and understanding changed immediately after I saw I saw the lawsuit and watched several YouTube videos on it. I was like, oh shit, yeah, of course. I believed it. I believed her, because that's what you should be doing. And this is something that is very common in bullying, actually. But it doesn't really get talked about because we don't want to question the status of a female victim at all, which is totally understandable and warranted. But this type of exploitation of womanhood, or your status as a woman, as a girl, it happens constantly. I know that for me, I mean, I still get these types of comments when I finished the chapter called Filthy. It was chapter 9, and it was about the sexual harassment and sexual abuse that I faced at the hands of my peers, fellow girls. I got a few comments on those illustrations that I made on those specific situations where I was being sexually harassed and almost assaulted, and I saw people romanticizing that, and I saw people being like, this reads as Yuri, this reads as Yuri, and this is like a sexually charged situation. And I'm like, yeah, it is, but also Can you see that the little one, the kid, is like literally crying and shaking? She doesn't want that. But you're saying that this reads as Yuri? As an avid Yuri reader, I am offended because no, like fucking hell. Like imagine total fucking strangers coming in and sexualizing the shit out of your your traumatic experiences with like sexual fucking abuse. Because we don't want to perceive women as like as the problem in these kinds of situations. They're absorbed of their status as the perpetrator, and we don't want to see them in that kind of light. And that's when you like end up in situations where people just are not aware that what they have gone through is actually sexual abuse because it has been at the hands of a woman. Now, obviously, this does not apply to Blake as it is, but I'm more so just talking about like the like womanhood in the context of sexual harassment, how that gets appropriated and just exploited in situations of bullying, because it's like the fact that you are a woman, the fact that you are a girl, that in itself means that you cannot be the problem in these situations. And that's like the problem, like actually the problem. Moving on to another example of utilizing abuse of power is quote unquote lobbying like associates to side with them, like through things like extortion and blackmail. And for Blake, the situation with her, I'm referring to the situations where she, for example, forced Justin to completely abide by her own personal rules, because if he didn't do that, she would have like left the production. Like she would have been out. And he would have had to like find somebody else to play the role of Lily and like start the whole fucking thing again. Like all over again. At this point, like they have been filming for a very long time already. But this is the way that that like Blake kind of like blackmailed him in some type of way, extorted, being just like, hey, these are the conditions. And this was, I believe that this was in relation to the kind of changes that Blake wanted to make on the production itself, or like the script, and like editing choices or something like that. And because Justin was the fucking director, like he didn't really like vibe with that. But then basically Blake was just like, well, like here's your options. So yeah. And by lobbying like their associates, what I mean by that is like, I'm talking about, for example, Blake's husband, Ryan Reynolds, that was not part of the production team for It Ends With Us at all, but he was made to be involved in it. He was made to be involved in the kind of problematic situation that Blake and Justin were in, based on those like text messages, like those screenshots, and then like some audio recordings even, and just like all kinds of stuff. You can see them like in the lawsuits. And then also, like I mentioned previously, like other cast members like unfollowing Justin and like not being in any type of contact with him, and just like refusing to even talk about him and all that kind of stuff, to like completely side with with Blake because she was able to abuse that power that she had over the situation. Then, as a final note to this section of the episode, abuse of power was also apparent in Blake taking advantage of the victim first rhetoric change that has happened. I kind of like referenced to this already, but for the sake of like furthering that argument, this type of change that has happened in the past decade or so in like public discourse surrounding sexual harassment and sexual abuse is being taken advantage of here because Blake is portraying herself as the victim in that complaint and lawsuit that she put out there, that Justin was sexually harassing her and making sexual advances at her which were not consensual and everything like that, even if like there is like solid proof to like prove otherwise. But she was taking advantage of this changed mentality of like you need to believe the victim first, and victim always comes first, and especially when it comes to sexual abuse and sexual violence, because when we're just talking about like on a systematic level, female victims by large they do get questioned and doubted and like basically gaslit from the situation, being like, well, I mean, like, that wasn't actual abuse, so like shut the fuck up. So yeah, we should always think of like the victim coming first. But people who are manipulative, people who fulfill the character criteria for the mean girl trope, they can be very cunning, and they can take advantage of these kinds of like morally pure situations. It's very nasty. It's very fucking nasty, and I hate it. 'Cause like they're giving us all a bad name, you know? Like people will be thinking about like, oh shit, yeah, well like that happened. That was a huge fucking scandal. Like that female celebrity just like pretended to be the victim, and then like she actually wasn't. So like what makes you think that I would believe you as the victim right now, huh? You know what I'm saying? Fucking sucks, man. Fucking sucks. But that's what bullies do. I really don't like that word, but that's what they're typically called. They do this kind of shit all the time. They take advantage of those morally pure intentions, morally pure concepts, like flip them around so that they benefit them personally in that specific moment, and then, by extension, fuck everyone else over. Woohoo! Cool! Awesome. Great going, Blake. Thanks. Alright, so moving on to the second part of this analysis that I've made on Blake's character as the grown-up mean girl. This should be a shorter one than the previous one. Let's try to make that happen. So this one is like I said at the intro, we're talking about when it goes unnoticed from the perpetrator's point of view. It being bullying here, like abuse in that kind of way. What happens when a perpetrator is not punished for their abusive acts? What happens when a perpetrator is allowed to keep going and they are not allowed to have that character development that we all should have, because they have not been put into the like conditions where that character development would naturally occur, meaning that they have not been punished in any kind of way, they have not been sanctioned, they have not even been like just notified of like the situation that like, well, hey, actually you're kind of an abusive piece of shit, you know, like none of that fucking happens. Like what happens to the perpetrator as an adult? What happens when bullying goes unnoticed and unaddressed from their perspective? We talk about the victim's perspective a lot, which is like my perspective here and a lot of yours perspective too. But I feel like this is a very interesting and important discussion to be had, and I'm using Blake as a kind of a framework for that. Again, this is all based on my personal analysis and like knowledge on things, both like academic and personal. So take it with a grain of salt or whatever. But I wanted to provide this context and this perspective here too, because I personally find it valuable and worthy of discussing. So let's get into it. First, we have adulthood advantages. When you become an adult, you get a lot of like advantages compared to children. You get more rights. You become an independent human being. Like you're responsible for your own fucking self, and you're free to do whatever in a lot of ways, but still abide by certain rules that we tend to call laws typically. But you know, but nobody's basically there to like watch over you and be like yeah, you shouldn't do that, actually, you know. So your status as an adult, when it comes to this type of abuse, gives you a certain advantages, certain privileges that a kid just simply does not have when they are abusing their peers in school, because they are a kid. So some of these include better understandings of human beings. Like I previously mentioned somewhere here down the line that once you just grow older, you know more things. Wow. When you grow up, when you become an adult, you know a lot more about yourself and other people and human beings and social situations, and you're able to see a lot more and just analyze things more and operate in like a deliberate manner in social situations. So this type of like cognitive and emotional understanding of situations that comes with adulthood is able to give you that advantage of coming up with even more and even like more fun and creative ways to abuse others. Yay. Another advantage that you get with adulthood is repercussions to victims might actually be very dire. Like for instance, losing a job or personal investments, or losing your pension and losing your reputation as an employee and all that kind of stuff. So when you are the perpetrator as an adult, when you are abusing like somebody in your workplace, for example, if the victim tries to come forward with that, and if they are not believed, if you are so fucking capable of manipulating the situation, you might end up putting the victim in a very, very shitty situation where, like, if they come forward with their experiences and you are able to wiggle yourself out and be like, I didn't do anything wrong, like I'm completely innocent, like I don't know what they're talking about, like Millie, So then like the victim will they can get like royally fucked over because they are an adult, and everything and anything that you do as an adult, especially in relation to work, like your job and your like studies and all of this official like relevant shit, that can like really just destroy your livelihood in future. So that's like awesome, like very much awesome. Yeah. Kind of in relation to this, adulthood advantages also include just like power play gets like very real, like so real, with things like money. Like, dude, like when you are an adult, and especially when you're a fucking millionaire or something, like you can actually like blackmail people, like in the real meaning of the term. You can you can literally blackmail people to just like pay you back like just millions of dollars if you want to. Like, dude, that's power play. Like very real. Like children and kids, same thing, but like kids and teenagers, like, you know, adolescent people, they don't have that much power. They have that social currency, yeah, sure, and you know, like a status as the popular kid and status as the lame nerd weeaboo, like that kind of stuff. But like they don't have money. They don't have those kind of advantages that adults do. So if you are a perpetrator, if you are somebody who used to abuse their peers at school and then that went unnoticed and now you are just continuing on with that abusive behavior, you can just, you know, like get so fucking real. So fucking real with power play. It's kind of nuts, honestly. A last factor of advantages that you get as an adult is, and I quote, adults don't bully. Yeah. There's this general misconception that adults don't bully each other, that adults are not the ones like responsible for this kind of thing. Like something that I will talk about in later episodes is the concept and like this sentiment that I see and hear a lot online is like, we're not in high school anymore, why are you doing this? And like, I understand like the motive for that, but also what do you mean by anymore? In high school anymore? Would this kind of behavior be justified in high school? Was it justified when you were in high school? And why is it that an adult can't get themselves involved in the same shitty ass behavior as they did when they were a kiddo? What makes you think that? That suddenly when you turn like 20, you are like mature and like fully developed as a human being, bro? Nah. Like, that's just like, some people grow up to be adults like in their fucking like 60s or 70s. Like, it's all relative. Your status as a legal adult doesn't mean that like you're suddenly like the most mature person ever. It can still be very much like very fucking immature. And like, some people do consider like bullying to be like an immature form of abuse, which like to a certain extent I understand, but that is also very much backed up by old and meaningless stereotypes and misconstrued understandings of what bullying even is. And I will get to this in a later episode. But yeah, so for this reason, the bullying is considered to be like an immature type of abuse. Like adults can't engage in it. Bruh, no. Like it's wishful thinking. It's wishful fucking thinking, in my opinion. Now, moving on to the next part. Fuck. Next fuck. Now, moving on to the next bit of things that happen when bullying goes unnoticed from the perpetrator's point of view is inflated egos and unethical practices. Now, this is also related to abuse of power, so kind of like this type of mentality that people who get away with this kind of abusive behavior for like their entire lives, they feel like I am untouchable. Nobody is the boss of me. I can do whatever the fuck I want. Nobody can tell me what to do. Kind of like that, like they're forever stuck as like a 15-year-old or something. Yeah. Fucking annoying. But that's what happens when you don't get punished, when you don't get like any type of consequences for your own shitty ass actions. And I'm kind of guessing, question mark, that something like this may be going on with Blake. I'm not saying that it's like the infinite truth. Please don't sue me. But that's my perception. So take that as what you will. At this point, like in and of itself, this leads me to one of my personal, like most just important arguments, and something that I will not argue on with anybody, because this is how I feel about it. This is, in my opinion, the only right way to go about it. This kind of behavior is why punishing those who abuse is the only way to go about it. Because if those abusers don't get any type of repercussions, any type of punishments, any type of consequences for their shitty ass actions, then they will keep doing it. They will become a forever bully. They will not, quote unquote, grow out of that phase. Imagine being a bully is your phase, and not like an emo phase. What the fuck? Damn. That's embarrassing. Anyways, this is the reason why I feel like I know that like punishing those who abuse is the only way to go about it. Because people who do shitty ass things to other people, they need to be told that like why they shouldn't do it. And a lot of the times people don't care about morals or ethics or whatever the fuck. They don't care about values. They don't care about other people's feelings, and like, because abusers generally don't care about that. What they care about is their own damn self. And if you punish them personally, then they might like learn the lesson. It's just better for the victim and the perpetrator, both, that the abuser actually gets punished for their actions. It's better for both of them, for the safety of the victim and for the betterment of the character of the abuser. Right. Moving on to financial and ethical corruption. You see this kind of shit happening in Hollywood like constantly. This kind of inflated egos and unethical practices leading to like financial corruption and all that kind of shit. I mean, you can see this in any like just corporate America setting. This is coming from an outsider, just as a reminder. But still, I mean, corruption is like literally everywhere. But when these abusers don't get any type of punishments for their actions, that can lead to them developing like a lot of just like very very morally and just like ethically like dubious mindsets, because they get the sense that the world doesn't really care about what they are doing, that the world like just allows them to do anything that they want, no matter how just like fucked up it is, that everything for them is excused, even just like terrible shit like just abuse. And then it can lead to financial and ethical corruption and just becoming like an exploitative ass person. So yeah. On that note, the final part of this inflated egos and unethical practices is pattern of exploitation continues and it leads to more abuse. In the context of Blake Lively, this is more so a direction of development that I hope that we will not see. Because the thing is that if this sort of like pattern of exploitation just like continues on, and she's able to get what she wants and like gets out of it just like that, then that can lead to more abuse, because that's the way that these people operate. Because I mean, abusers are like that. Nothing is ever good enough for them. If they get out of one situation, like just if they can wash their hands off of the blood of like somebody, and then that somebody cannot be abused anymore, then they will move on to the next victim, because that's how they operate in this world. And I hope that we will not see that. But it is a fact that happens. It happens very often. People always talk about how victims, those kids who have been abused by their peers in school, how they become the abusers themselves later on. And this does happen too. But I would say that that's more like a negative stereotype, or like a misconstrued narrative surrounding victimhood in the context of bullying, that the victim is like this bitter and just vindictive person who is just seeking for revenge. These stereotypes and these misconstrued understandings of a bullying victim, like they are the reason why I created the satirical character called the victim, because they're supposed to like represent that stereotype. So that gets thrown around a lot, but I would argue that it is just as common, if not even more common, to see those kids who abused other kids back then grow up to be fucking abusers as an adult. That they end up in abusive situations, that they end up being the perpetrator of an abusive relationship. Like, I mean, it's logical. If they don't get any kind of punishment, then nothing is there to like stop them and to tell them that like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. Because again, they don't care about morals. They don't care about any of that shit. They care about their own fucking ass. So yeah. Alright, so those were all of my notes. Yeah. This episode lasted way longer than I thought that it would. God damn. I hope that I will be able to cut some of it off and just like do a bit of editing, because holy shit. Who's gonna listen to me yap this long? Nobody. I am not that important by any means. Don't worry, I will not become one of those commentary creators who just reports on these things constantly. I can promise you that I will not be talking about Blake Lively again. Partly because I think that it's pretty redundant and I have said everything that I wanted to say. These are the thoughts that I have been just thinking about during the past few months, and I just needed to get them out. So here you go. But after this, I'm done. I'm done with this topic. As in, like, talking about it and creating content. I will be following it though, because I'm so invested, and I want to see how things progress. But I won't be reporting on it, unfortunately. Sorry, but you should go ahead and check out those other content creators, those other YouTubers who have talked about this. I will have them linked in the description on YouTube, and then on Spotify somehow, I guess. I am not really familiar with Spotify podcast, like that part of Spotify. I'm trying to just like figure things out a bit, so yeah, we'll see how that goes. But anyways, yeah, I guess I don't really have like all that just much to say at the end, other than yeah, obviously these are just like my personal opinions, and you are more than welcome to disagree with me, and I would love to know how you feel about these things. How do you feel about Blake Lively? How do you feel about this entire like shit show? Do you think that Justin Baldoni is the problem, or do you think that it's Blake, or do you think that they all suck? Me personally, I think that they all suck, but on different levels, and yeah. But to me, for personal reasons, Blake's behavior was very, very bothersome and very triggering too. I really don't like that. I don't like those types of people, because they have been, well, I mean, they have been the problem for me very often. So yeah, there's that. So that's my personal bias. But I wanted to do something more, I guess, like productive with that bias. I don't know how well that worked. Please give me your feedback. Please tell me if I should like stop doing this already. Please tell me if you think that this is stupid, or that you don't want to listen to me talk about fucking social media bullshit. Please, yeah, like jokes aside, just like I would really appreciate your feedback, because yeah, I do this for you. Like, also, like, I'm not here like sitting by my desk and listening to my own fucking podcast. Ew, no. Not if I don't have to, like, editing and all that shit. Anyways, yeah, but I guess that's it. Yeah, thank you so much for tuning into today's episode, and the very, very first installation of the social media commentary part of the podcast. I'm excited to see where things go from here. I have no idea what episode number this is going to be, because I am recording these at kind of like a jumbled schedule. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm fucking around and finding out. That's the way that you go. All right, but yeah, I thank you so much for your company today. I hope that you'll have a great rest of your day wherever you are. Take care of yourselves, everyone. All right. Also, before I go, I wanted to give out my member shoutouts to my wonderful patrons. I have 2 Patreon tiers, and the more expensive one, Special Friends, it's like €5 or something. If you join that tier, you will get a member shout out at the end of every single podcast episode. I will actually like have to do this. I will remind myself to do it, because you guys deserve it. So for this episode, my member shout outs go to Pause Up Robbie and Maddie, my girlfriend. So yeah, thank you guys so much for supporting me, and yeah, I love you. My name is Educanium, and this has been our project Death on a Paper.